something like that happens, but I'm sitting there going like, good. and I shouldn't be.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
Welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkins from Cinemasins, joined as always, I guess, for these mini-pods. Jonathan Watkins from Cinemasins.
Hello, hello.
And today we're going to be doing a mini-pod.
Brahmsy pod?
Of Brahms, the boy, too. So, yeah. The sequel to The Boy. This was supposed to come out, I believe, in August.
That sounds right. It's been delayed a couple times, or at least once.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the summer of 2019 somewhere, late July, early August, somewhere around there.
Oh, that's right.
And then it was in December. It was going to be the first week of December that it was supposed to come out. Now it's in February, and it finally came out. I thought we're going to have an Amityville situation, the Bella Thorne.
Yeah,
Amityville,
which I've actually seen. This is way better than that.
Wow. I guess, let's see, where do we start on this? If you haven't seen The Boy,
I think you could still watch this movie, though, to be honest. I don't know that you have to have seen The Boy.
I don't think so. I'm just trying to think of how we're going to discuss this.
Well, I'm curious, though, because, okay, so we just released The Boy Cinemasins video this past week, and we wrote the script on it, but I didn't actually really talk to you about the movie. Did you like The Boy?
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like it was good for what it was. It felt like, I don't know, it wasn't completely fleshed out. I didn't like the whole, it just didn't make sense in my mind that somebody who's trying to leave a bad situation would go all the way to goddamn England
absolutely.
To take a nanny job.
Yeah.
And then like when it's at the most crucial point where the couple is like, yeah, you're going to have to take care of this doll. Why she didn't just go like find some other job at that point.
We talked about that in the video, I think, where I know we had some sins at one point where they could have, they could have come up with something better than the abusive boyfriend. Like she could have just wanted to travel or, anything. Yeah, that was a little weak. It's like a solid B for me. I saw it in the theater and was surprised. And it's still got one of those all-time theatrical moments for me where, when you see the hands, when the mirror explodes towards the end and you see the hands coming out, I can just remember it was like a Thursday night screen and it was like me and like 20 people and there was some audible like, what the fuck? It was just one of those cool moments. Which they recreate in this kind of. It's like a pretty effective slow burn for like the first like 2/3, and then it kind of turns into like this crazy like Friday the 13th Part 2.
Yeah,
rip-off.
sure.
It's insane.
Yeah, the whole movie, it seems like, okay, this is your typical creepy doll fare where creepy doll's going to be doing creepy things when you're not looking and so on and so forth, and then it has a nice little twist. But yeah, to get into The Boy 2, I also feel like we're going to have to probably get into spoilers earlier than normal. I did not like this movie at all.
Okay.
In fact, if we just did a Fantasy Island one, I think this is right at that same area. I think this is a D movie.
This is gonna be fun. It was so funny. I woke up this morning and I just glanced at Rotten Tomatoes. There was only 6 reviews, so I don't know what. I'm sure it won't stay at this, but it was at a 0.
Yeah,
and I was like, I feel like I watched a completely different movie. I think this is a fairly effective thriller. I'm not going crazy. I'm not saying I loved it. I liked it less than the first one. So, but I'm like in B- territory.
Okay. Look, I respect that you are giving this a B-. Okay, I would never be like fuck you.
No, I know.
Never would be like that.
Hey, it's good.
But goddamn, I want to know what you liked about this movie.
But I don't know if I could explain it that well. I thought it was. I don't know. I guess I just got on board with it. Maybe partly because I liked the first one. I didn't really know kind of like the first one, I wasn't sure what was going on and I think part of that was because I had seen the first one and I knew what happened in the first. In fact, I wasn't even sure if this was a prequel or a sequel for a while.
Yeah, I actually was feeling that same way.
And the trailer, and so I think that aspect of it was interesting to me. I thought Katie Holmes was actually pretty good.
She is.
And I think she actually, and they put her in a situation early on where her mental state isn't great. And I that actually makes sense. And so I think the actions that she takes, and like, she's not, I don't know. I think she actually makes like some smart decisions, and I thought they actually did a decent job with her character. And it was like I said, it was just like a kind of a tight little thriller. And then it turns into what it turns into at the end, which I didn't like as much. But there was enough there for me to give this like a slight recommend. I also think like if you have a younger person that is interested in seeing, like my daughter actually wants to see this, and I think I'm going to take her to it because I feel like this is a pretty nice. There's definitely some violence in it and stuff, but it's PG-13. It feels like a PG-13 movie, so I think it'll be kind of fun for younger audiences. And I don't know. I more and getting more in spoilers, but I enjoyed it. Like I didn't love it, but I slightly liked it.
Okay. We will get on to spoilers then, because I really do want to get into this.
Cool.
No spoilers!
Kevin Spacey is Kaiser Soze.
Luke's father is actually Darth Vader. She's the sister and the daughter. They just
No. I'm reading the books.
I don't know where to begin, really. I hate how I love the fact, okay, it's fine to start off your movie with this home invasion type of thing. This is where the whole movie sort of, springboards off of. Katie Holmes is at home with her son, and her son is kind of a prankster, always likes to scare her and all that. And so that sets up the whole thing where he scared her right at the beginning, and then they go to bed, and then she gets up, and there's these guys who are, home invading and everything. And she gets into this big, brawl, I guess, with them.
Actually has some moves, man.
Has some moves.
Yeah.
And she thinks it's before they reveal themselves, she thinks that the kid's like doing some scary shit again.
Yeah. Because
he's hiding behind the counter and all that. And so she thinks this is some other thing and then suddenly, she's attacked. Movie goes straight from the attack to I guess, I don't know how many, is it months? Is it 6 months? I think
something like that. It's
it
been
goes
a minute.
Straight to that. We don't even know what those dudes were.
No,
we don't even know what they were until like 30, 40 more minutes in the movie. She goes, it was just a stupid robbery or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, that's what I figured it was,
Yeah.
but like it didn't give you any time to figure that out.
Yeah.
It just some dudes, and then like when she starts having flashbacks, I started thinking, oh, did she have flashbacks before, and that she did something crazy in front of her son?
Yeah.
And that's why her son is traumatized.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was a real incident for a while because she keeps having these visions of masked men showing up.
But she's just having she's not dealing with it well.
Right.
And they also make it seem like she's so focused on her son that she's not helping herself, which is a very normal parental thing.
Yeah, if you want to do if you want to grade this movie based on like psych eval and everything like that, I think it does a pretty good job there. But like I had a hard time figuring out or grasping onto what was going on, because there was no aftermath to that scene. There was nothing. We didn't see them steal anything. We didn't see what she felt directly after that. All we know is 6 months later, she's apparently fine, but the son won't speak. And this sets up a thing in the movie that I don't like at all. I hate this whole kid won't speak and is writing down notes and everything.
And it doesn't really it doesn't really come to anything because then all of a sudden he's just speaking again.
Yeah, later on.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you on that. There's really no point to that. And the kid's a perfectly fine actor, so I mean, it's not like he couldn't act.
No, kid's fine.
Yeah.
But the fact that he can't speak, and then it gets into this whole thing where I've seen a million horror movies like this. When he digs up Brahms out in the middle of a yard, and they've decided to take a temporary like vacation of some sort out in the countryside, and it just so happens to be close to the house in the first one.
Yeah, they're at a guest house basically,
and they are walking around in the woods, and this kid Jude finds the Brahms doll with a hand sticking out of the ground, finds him, and starts bonding with it and everything. It then becomes basically like a whole bunch of like million other horror movies where the kid is talking to some sort of imaginary friend who's not imaginary, and this friend who wants you desperately to follow the rules won't reveal himself to anybody else that's in the house at all. I guess it's because he's psychotic and he wants to kill everybody.
Yeah.
But he's got a whole bunch of rules that you have to, based on some little kid's word, you have to follow or else he gets angry.
Yeah.
So I don't like any of that. And then there's a point where there's like, the same old cliche where they're like the drawings and the notepad and everything and all that.
Yeah.
Like I have to show a bunch of death and everything. Anyway, that's not even getting to the point where you were about to talk about retconning before.
Yeah. The
retconning part that I don't like at all. But anyway, you go ahead. You tell me why you like.
This is very. I agree with you. It's very paint by numbers, which is why I'm not going much higher than that. In fact, I C plus B minus is where I'm at. So I'm not going much higher than that because it is very paint by numbers. But I do think in some of these paint by numbers genre exercises, some are more effective than others, and I think this is one that's more effective than others. I think William Brent Bell is a pretty good director. He directed the first one also. I think he was given a pretty hard task to make a sequel here. I feel like it feels to me like the first one made a decent amount of money. They wanted to do a sequel. STX did, or whoever, the main Lakeshore or whatever, and he went and created this. But I think he's a pretty effective director. I like how he sets up scenes. The home invasion, I love that shot where she's walking down the stairs and the guy's standing.
Great shot.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm really curious to see what he does moving forward. I know he's got 5 or 6 movies on his IMDb that he's working on. Because I don't necessarily want to see him keep doing boy sequels. Because it's pretty amazing. This one worked it all for me. But it is very paint by numbers. But I think the directing's really good. I think that, I don't know, like, I know what you're saying. Everything is fairly predictable other than, I guess we have to spoil the boy, don't we, to talk about this?
So, yeah, I guess if you don't want to be spoiled from the first The Boy.
Because I don't know how else to do that.
You don't want to continue any much longer in this podcast, but yeah, we're going to start talking spoilers for the first Boy.
And I would recommend The Boy, and I think Chris slightly recommends it as well. So, which we just discussed early before the spoilers. So in The Boy, you find out that the actual Brahms is living in the walls. Basically, which the time frame they talk about in this movie makes no sense because they say he was in the walls for like 30 years. But anyways, so this kid who the parents, the Hilshires, did they say Hilshires?
It's Hilshire, I think, like Hilshire.
Yeah, from the first movie that ended up, they brought Lauren Cohen in to be the nanny for Brahms, and they went off and killed themselves.
Yeah.
Their son was living in the walls. He wasn't actually dead. They just said he was because he was responsible for the death of a kid and a fire and all this stuff. So you find out at the end of the first Boy that he's been living in the walls, and then they end up killing him. So that's obviously not the case in this movie. Like, that kid's dead, and so you don't really know what's going on. So what they decided to do, they actually turned the doll into a supernatural entity, and they're saying that they create, and then they come up with there's all these other things before the Hilshers where there's these other kids that were affected by the doll as well. There were all these other deaths that happened at this house.
This part right here drives me insane. There's no reason to retcon.
No,
okay, let me take that back.
Yeah.
There is reason to retcon because it's impossible to make a second movie where the dude's living in the walls and there's some sort of, there's no way to really do that other than to make the doll evil. I understand that, but still, this gets to the point where I'm like, maybe you shouldn't even make this movie then, if that's the case.
Yeah, I think that it's really weird for me. The retconning it didn't bother me. So I think that's another reason why I didn't mind this movie, because it did. I mean, there were certain aspects to it. Like, I thought it was kind of funny how the stinger shot or the final shot over the credits from the previous movie, in this movie they show it again, and it's the groundskeeper. Yeah. Whereas we thought it was Brahms.
Right, and it was.
It definitely was.
Yeah.
No, this was created after the first one. Like there was no, but kind of like Happy Death Day to You, which Happy Death Day to You is way better. And I think Christopher Landon in those movies, I think he did have an idea of where he wanted to go. But this kind of reminded me of, in the sense that what they did in Happy Death Day to You was they decided to explain everything why things happened in the first one. And they kind of do that here, but it does feel more like a retcon than it does just a natural progression of the story, because it's very clear in the first one the doll is not evil. Mm-hmm. The doll is just some sort of, like, I don't even know why they have the doll, to be honest, when I'm trying to think about it. But just so they can, I don't know, so they can take care of their child in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's just this psycho family, basically, this weird family. Whereas in this, you find out there's actually it's Annabelle. I mean, it's Annabelle.
Yeah, there's even a point where the face gets torn off, and it's like some wicked looking. Now that's a pretty cool part.
Yeah. Well, that's where the movie just kind of goes. It kind of owns what it is, and it just kind of just goes crazy, like, basically. And that was cool. And it was weird. It looked like, I swear to God, I don't have any. I have not read anything about whether or not he intentionally does this, but in the first one, we both had sins referring it to Friday the 13th Part 2, because that's what it feels like at the end of the movie, where he comes out, he looks like Jason, he's got that mask and everything.
Yeah, and Lauren Cohan does that whole thing where mommy says you have to do this.
Yes. And then in this one, it even kind of has some Friday the 13th stuff in it, because that doll looks like freaking Jason almost, like when you take the mask off, like from like Jason Goes to Hell or something, with like all the bugs and stuff. And then at the end, you have that little stinger at the end where the kid, even though they've destroyed the doll, which is actually a pretty decent scene, the kid still has the mask, and he puts the mask on in front of the mirror, and he's like being all creepy, and that felt very Friday the 13th.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if they're saying there's something supernatural about the mask or whatever at the end, but it could be just the fact that the guy's had 2 traumatic events happen to him at an early age.
Absolutely. But they tried that. There's a couple of Friday the 13th endings, but like the one with Corey Feldman, I mean, that happens at the end of that, and then there was another one where it happened too. So I don't know. I don't know if he's intentionally doing the Friday the 13th stuff. It's gotten to the point though where I kind of want him to direct a Friday the 13th movie, because I'm really curious if that's intentional. But and then what was I going to say? I kind of lost my thought. Oh, that mask is absolutely creepy. There's visual cues in this movie that, like, I just really enjoyed. Like, I enjoyed watching it. It's all surface level. It's very cookie cutter for the most part. They kind of go a little nutty at the end, but for the most part, it's very standard stuff. It's also very PG-13. There's really, I'm trying to think if there's one death maybe. I guess they killed the groundskeeper, right?
The dog dies.
Oh yeah.
That
kid gets hurt, but he doesn't die.
Yeah, and yeah, that was such a. Okay, this is another thing I hated about this movie. That kid.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
So like, I don't like it when we have a primary antagonist like the doll and everything. And then a character comes in that you could arguably say is more evil than the doll.
Yeah. Oh, that kid's awful.
And there was not one good quality to him at all. There was all he did was sit there and make fun and destroy things and
just as soon as he comes in, he's just attacking him.
Yeah, and it just makes no sense to me. And then when it comes time for him to like fall on that spike, I'm like, I don't feel bad, and I should feel bad when any character, even if they're rough around the edges, something like that happens. But I'm sitting there like, good, and I shouldn't be. But the whole movie is like sitting there just going, oh my God, look at what happened because of the doll and his wishes and everything. Oh my God, this kid, he's been hurt and all that. And I'm like, no, I mean that guy needed to get that probably.
And what I thought was interesting a little bit, I agree with you on that, because he was like a Stephen King bully, just and just dialed up to like 300 like immediately. Like they didn't even give it time. Now this movie, unlike Fantasy Island, is probably the right length of time. It's pretty quick. I don't even know if it's 90 minutes. But I also thought it was interesting that they don't hide that the doll can move and do stuff on its own. But what they do, which is kind of interesting, what they do in the movie though is it's all from Katie Holmes' perspective. So you are kind of thinking in the back of your head, is it just something she's seen? Yeah, because she's having some issues too.
And they did that in the first one too.
They did, definitely.
Where they made it. That's why the twist is so effective, because we are certain, because we've seen all these movies before. And because we see that doll like moving and everything, we've seen it has moved, and there's nobody else that could possibly be doing it. We think, and so like so the second time around, you're like, it could be in her head. There's a lot of there's a lot of ways to go with it, but they decided to just go ahead and make it evil.
Yeah, and they even have the Owen, I don't know how to say his name, Owen Yomain.
I don't know. It's like Owen Yeoman, but he, if he's Welsh, it's probably something that we would never in a million years pronounce.
Which is so weird, because my wife and I watched The Mentalist, and he was one of the main characters on that, and he had an American accent in that. So even though I know he is not American, every time I see him using his actual accent, it completely throws me.
It's like the guy, and I won't pronounce his name right here either, but I'm pretty sure he's it's the guy from Fantastic Four.
I can't think of his name now. Ian.
It's like Ian Grufford or whatever, but like I think it's pronounced in some like it just doesn't make any sense kind of way. He's from Wales too. Yeah. But like it's just one of those. I wish I need to research this more, but like Welsh names are impossible for Americans. So
yeah, most of them definitely are. But what I was going to say was he finds out because he's at the hospital with I guess that's his nephew maybe or cousin or something. I don't know, the kid that gets hurt. Yeah, he's at the hospital with the family. And just some random townsperson's there that knows everything about the house. Yeah. Which is, I guess, is a small village or something. So that kind of makes sense. But then mentions there was a crazy Joe or whatever, which ends up he figures out is the groundskeeper. So when they did that, I was like, oh, okay. So maybe the groundskeeper's been doing this the whole time. And then that's just Katie Holmes was seeing things. But no, the doll's evil. And I don't know. That's not. I kind of like it because we get that whole nonsense with them tearing the face off, and I thought that scene was actually kind of fun. And you have the moment where the kid's acting like he's going to help the doll, but then he throws it, in the fire. I thought that was all fairly effective. Like I said, this is very cookie cutter. This is not anything. This isn't something where this isn't like an Ari Aster film or something where there's something going on beyond. This is very much like A to B to C. You've seen this movie a million times. I just feel like it's done well enough to where I think it's done well enough to give it a slight recommendation. Yeah. I'm not really praising it. I'm just it was effective enough for me. And I'm just like I can't even believe they made a sequel. I can't imagine they can make a better one than this. I mean, to be honest, even if you don't like it, I mean, I think they at least tried something. Yeah. That, with a pretty impossible task. I mean, that just isn't a movie that was like, hey, let's have a sequel. which most movies aren't, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, that one would have been. You would have to have done some serious gymnastics to make the Boy 2 kind of like the first one in any way, because everybody who's seen that first one is sitting there going, well, how do you have the guy in the walls this time? Whatever.
But it appears more people are going to be on your side, which I totally get. I just, it just worked for me for whatever reason. So
yeah, the other thing that was funny to me, that was just laugh out loud unbelievable, was when they get the doll out of the ground. And Katie Holmes cleans it up and everything and everything, and it looks flawless. And she's like, "Oh, it looks like it's been broken before." And I'm like, "No, it doesn't."
No, yeah, and see that's why when I saw the preview and when it first started watching, I was like, "This has to be a prequel." But then I'm like, "But that doesn't make any sense because they've got like tablets and I mean, because I'm sitting there thinking if they're the Hilshers or something, and which that wouldn't make sense. Katie Holmes didn't have
that definitely went into my head.
But they were probably like what, I don't know, in their 60s or something.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like that that was the thing that if the movie could have maybe possibly taken out the tablets and taken out like some modern things, then it could have been a nice little prequel type of story. In fact, I wouldn't have been surprised if it started that way. Yeah. And then they were like, "Oh, wait a minute, let's just make this modern." But
and then if you watch the trailer, they say you'll learn how he becomes, how Brahms becomes the boy or whatever. I don't know. They say they make it almost sound like it's going to be a prequel, which I guess technically you do learn the origins of Brahms. Well, not really the origins, but you learn that the doll itself is definitely evil.
Well, even the story of the cousins coming over and everything is similar to, I believe, the fire story in the first one.
Oh, that's true.
Where it was just people being brought over as a play date.
That could have been the girl.
Yeah, so I feel like that's probably, it feels almost like, now that we've talked about it, that's how this movie started.
Because that would have been like in the 80s, I think, I believe, because I think they say he died, it was like 83 or something. I don't know. I could be wrong, but that's from what I remember, because I remember we were sending something around that because it was confusing. But I believe that's what his tombstone said. So I mean, yeah. I mean, if they, like I said, if they had taken away some of that stuff, this could have been in the 80s. I mean, but pretty immediately, it's not. There's cell phones, there's tablets. So I'm like, if this is a prequel, they're retconning the years too. Like they're changing up everything.
There's this image that keeps coming up on. I'm looking at the IMDb, and there's an image of Katie Holmes looking at the torn up teddy bear, and like. That's another thing in horror movies that I don't get a lot of times is like, I don't like, okay, I understand that the doll's evil and he's pissed off that you're not following his rules. Mm-hmm. And his response is, let's stab a teddy bear. Yeah. And then like have that as, I mean, like the reasonings behind all of these things, like this is just this is something that gets Katie Holmes into that whole thing where she's at odds with her son because she thinks that her son is like lying to her and everything. But like, I just try to figure out what the real motivations are. Is the motivation to get the mom and the son at odds with each other? Maybe.
I took that honestly, which this still doesn't completely work, but I took that as they were trying to say that Brahms was like, I'm your doll. I mean, yeah. But the only problem with that is that they only show the bear in one other scene, and it's really it's one of those things where she's just like, "Oh, you're scared to sleep alone. Here, just sleep with your bear." He's like, "Well, I don't sleep with toys." So I didn't feel like that stuffed animal was really special.
Wasn't important to him.
I mean, maybe there was something that they cut out or something. Maybe because that was the night of the home invasion, maybe it somehow became more important to him. Yeah. Maybe. But that was how I took what they were thinking that we would, I'm your toy or whatever. You don't need this guy.
Could be, but it just I feel like as soon as he digs Brahms out, there's like. He's not like hanging out with the teddy bear at that point. I mean, you might as well stab, a book.
Yeah, or absolutely. Yeah, like his journals or whatever he was drawing on.
I don't know. Anyway, it's just your typical horror movie shit. I shouldn't even be that cynical about it, but like, it's just one of those things where I'm sitting there seeing this image pop up, and I'm like, oh yeah, he just tore up a teddy bear for no fucking reason.
Like I think the main thing for me, like I said, I like the director's style, and I think there's enough there to where this is kind of one of those where if I'm going to watch one of these types of movies, this one would serve its purpose, better than most. Like, I don't know, like stuff like, this isn't really that similar to that, but stuff like Mama or something. Like I would probably take this over that, even though I didn't hate that movie, and I would definitely take this over like The Turning.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess maybe the fact that it didn't suck, or to me it didn't suck, and maybe, I was legitimately, like, from the get-go, like, I was on board. Like, I was in tune to it enough to where I felt like at the end I was going to have to give it like a slight recommend. So
has not been a good year for horror for me at all.
No, which is, fairly normal. It's January and February. Invisible Man, I've heard some good stuff about that, so we'll see. I don't know how horror that's going to be, but we'll see.
Okay, well, how many of you out there have seen The Boy, Brahms, The Boy 2? Tell us what you think at SinCast presented by Cinemasins on Facebook. We're also on Cinemasins Twitter, Music Video Sins Twitter. We're on SoundCloud. We're also on Discord. If you want to get on Discord, you can go to the right side of the Reddit page and click on a link there, or you can go to the Facebook and private message me, and I will give you a link to Discord. Jonathan, where can people find you?
You can reach me on Twitter at SamLoomis13. You can also hear me most weeks on Behind the Sins with Danae Hughes and Aaron Dicer. And I think we should create some more social media. I want to hear you say like 5 more things because I think it's fun.
Yeah, I think it's fun too. But that'll do it for this mini-pod. It's Chris Atkinson and Jonathan Watkins. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.